when I was working out, you know what kept crossing my mind, man? Was it some stranger out there, someone I'll never meet, somebody that I'll never know their name, could be inspired by my story, that all the mistakes I made and the bumps and bruises and crashes and overdoses and everything I went through, and then I was able to turn it all around. If that is the moment where they go, I'm going to ask for help, or today is the day I'm going to make a change, to know that that story could have been their turning point, man, it gives me chills thinking about it.
Hello, and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself, a loved one, maybe you're actively in recovery a short time or a long, long time, you're going to find pretty much everything you can think of here at Recovery Today in terms of living a happy, healthy, and sober life. My name is Rob Hanley. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today. And as usual, I'm joined by another really, really cool guest, a personal friend of mine, a great friend of mine. Love this guy dearly, dearly, dearly. Like you to meet Aaron Barnes. And Aaron is a sober coach. He's a sober companion. He's an internationally certified interventionist, a fitness, health, and nutrition coach. He was recently featured in Men's Health magazine because the guy is absolutely ripped, and he also does a little bit of motivational speaking, but most importantly, he's my friend. He's coached me, he's helped me, he's given me advice, and I just love the guy, so wanted to have him out here. So thanks for taking a minute, Aaron.
The feeling's mutual, Rob, in every way. Thanks for having me.
Right on, man. So I kind of gave everybody a little bit of setup, but let's kind of start from your story. You know, I know that you're a Midwest boy. You're kind of out in California a bunch. Nebraska corn-fed kind of guy, probably into sports when you're a kid and all that kind of stuff. But, so take everybody through a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit of who you are and kind of how this, addiction journey is, come out and recovery journey is manifested.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, you nailed it. I'm a Midwest guy through and through. Currently reside in Nebraska. I was born in Missouri, and so, it's all I've really ever known. Small town kid, little big-eared kid, always a little awkward, but I had a good upbringing for the most part, good childhood, man. I was one of those guys you probably look at, say, how did addiction ever hit this guy? How did this guy become a drug addict, right? I didn't have some of the obvious signs of some of the people I work with, of the traumatic experiences and things, but a lot of the pain that I felt, which is the stem of most addiction, was really self-induced to a certain extent. There was a lot of things that I was perceiving incorrectly in my life and handling incorrectly, and really reckless behaviors that mounted up and stacked up to the point where I wanted to escape my reality so badly that I turned to drugs and alcohol, and a loss of control, and I lost love for myself and let myself go and really dug a hole for myself that I felt like I could never get out of. It was too big, it was too deep, there was too much baggage and damage, Rob. That's the reality that I had created for myself, that drugs and alcohol allowed me to escape a reality that in large part I did was self-induced. Not all, but I take full responsibility for my actions and behaviors at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was the drug of choice? I mean, most, guys our age, you're a little bit younger than I, were drinking and stuff like that, but it's not like you're just doing a little bit of blow. I mean,
no, a lot of bit of blow, more like
a little bit of the dark side before we go into the positive.
You bet, buddy. It got ugly, man. I drank for the first time. I was raised under some religious beliefs and systems that where drugs and alcohol didn't really play a factor in my young adult life, and until I became a freshman in college and moved out of my house for the first time, when I really got exposed to drugs and alcohol, that unfortunately I didn't have any answers or coping skills or even an understanding of drugs and alcohol.
You're just like a farm boy kind of guy going to college.
Kind of, sort of. Like yeah, yeah, I guess so. In a farm boy kind of way. I was wet behind the ears. Wet behind the ears.
Wet behind the ears. All right. I would have ate a guy like you for lunch when I was in college.
Well, I tell you, it's funny. I hit the accelerator, man, when I got out of college, and I took a crash course in the School of Hard Knocks, and really just go big or go home was how I did drugs and alcohol and everything else in my life from that point forward. And so I, joined a fraternity, started doing this. I started working at a water park. I started living the party lifestyle, the young, hey man,
College.
first time I'm off the leash, let's do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
sex,
Yeah.
drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so it caught up to me real fast. I had a couple very unexpected and painful events happen in my life with some, unexpected pregnancies, with some run-ins with the law, with, some personal struggles that I went through at a young age. And the only really coping mechanism I knew to turn to was drugs and alcohol that allowed me to escape my reality, to numb that feeling of pain and shame and guilt.
Yeah.
And I dove into it. So, I drank and started getting into club drugs and going out clubbing and ecstasy and cocaine, and really started experimenting in my early 20s. I always found it to be that escape from my reality. It always guaranteed me that I could leave my world and get into this alternative world and not have to deal with all of the mess that I had created and continued to create. And then, I went through some gambling addiction, Rob, where I again, another escape, where I would just gamble heavily but whether it was drugs or alcohol or gambling or even traveling, whatever it is, I just was always trying to live in this different world than my own, because I just was so unhappy and uncomfortable with my reality.
And so you get into, and I think you also, did you have an accident too? I mean, was there, opiates at all?
Yeah, for sure. When I turned, not that it was so much accident-based, but I found that opioids, whenever I really got introduced to them when I was about 36 years old, I took some oxycodone, and really the feeling that I had, that weightlessness, that numbness, that the functioning addict, textbook functioning addict is what I was the first time I did it, where I said, okay, I can function and run my business and be a subpar father, but at least I didn't have that coked out of my mind sensation. I could function, but yet, be a fraction of my authentic self. And so, but whenever I had a back condition called ankylosing spondylitis that made it very easy for me to put my hands on opioids through, a doctor. And I was your perfect opioid crisis, patient. It was easy to get pills, no problemo. And away we went, and I became extremely hooked on oxycodone to the point where I was a full-blown drug addict.
Right?
Oh, man, it made me feel good until I had to snort 20 of them up my nose to get high, you know what I mean? Then I knew the fun was over, the feel-good had stopped. Then it was a full-on addiction, and massive withdrawals and hell on earth, and it got ugly.
So isn't that amazing that, I look at you now, you're so, inspiring, you really look like the picture of, of health. And the photo shoot, we'll have it in this feature of you in Men's Health, is pretty ridiculous, man. Like, it's kind of like how far somebody might go on the physical side. But one of the things that I've always liked about you, and one of the reasons why we become friends, is you're just such like a happy, positive kind of guy. It's kind of probably why I introduced you originally, and I say, you're from the Midwest. People think oftentimes, wholesome and things like that. Tease you a little bit about, wet behind the ear, go to college. But it's such a contrast to what most people might think that are not in recovery, that like, wow, this could progress to like alcohol and cocaine and stuff like that, all the way into opioid addiction, heroin addiction. I don't know if you were you ever shooting at all?
I did not. I never crossed over, man, and I'm
lucky. It's such a dark area, and then the whole extreme to like where you are now, because we've had conversations that are like the hopeless side of things, and the not feeling good about yourself. And one of the things I just love about you is you're just always like the brighter side of stuff now. You're always really positive, smiling, happy. I guess to jump off and to exit and to get to a question, like, when in the dark side did you realize that you had a problem, that either had a problem or you're thinking, I'm an addict? And then what happened for you? Did somebody intervene? Like, how did you pull yourself out of that?
I knew I had a problem for a long time, but I didn't want to address the problem. I wasn't ready to address the problem. I didn't realize, it was
Is it
such
like
a
months or years or?
oh no, my addiction went on from the time I was, I really dove into drugs around 18, and I got sober when I was 38 finally. I had 2 failed attempts at rehab before my 3rd successful attempt. I had an overdose, 100 near-death experiences at least.
Actually,
And
like, okay, let me stop because that's really I can't let that go. 100
oh,
near-death experiences?
Rob, what I would
We're not
do.
talking about dreams that you had. We're talking
No,
about
no.
I almost died this time. I almost died that time. I
Yeah.
did die this time. That's what I'm thinking about when somebody says something like that.
So for example, I always had this go big personality, right? I was always an extremist in most things I did, whether it was career or love or life or whatever. I was just kind of an extremist. So when I would do drugs, I would do an ounce of cocaine or something. And, if I drove, my motorcycle would be 170 miles an hour down the interstate. You know what I'm trying to say? I had a motorcycle accident. I mean, I continued to have these crazy experiences that there's no doubt whatsoever they should have killed me. No ifs, ands, or buts. These are, without question, death knocking on your front door experiences. And I went to the ER numerous times. I cannot explain how many times. I told you I overdosed, had to, have me brought back, and my stomach pumped, and it was one after another because my extremism, my go big behavior was so channeled the wrong way into drugs, alcohol, and bad behaviors that I got into drug trafficking. I cannot tell you how many near-death experiences came from just that couple years of my life in my early 20s.
Like and stuff like that.
No bueno. And we made some poor choices all in the name of drug trafficking that I look back and it makes me kind of, shudder sometimes. It's like, holy smokes, how close we probably came many, many times to a unfortunate ending. And
it's funny. I never knew about the near death. Of course, we've never had this kind of an in-depth kind of conversation about you. A lot of times it's about me and things that I'm going through, and then you give me your perspective and then advice and stuff. But you don't look at all like somebody that was ever into drug trafficking. I'm usually thinking about people that are fully tatted and everything like that. That's cool. I don't really care either way, but you just don't strike me as like somebody that's into drug trafficking ever,
That's actually funny you say that because unfortunately at the time, that's how we got away with it because we didn't fit the typical bill. No one was looking at us, what we were doing. In fact,
clean cut.
Surely not. Just what you said was we just slid right through the airport or the train station, and it just was horrible choices I was making. Again, I look back at it, just another way to escape my reality, Rob. You know what I mean? I wanted to be that someone I wasn't, and I was trying to find myself and fit in and find people that I could, relate to. And then I was using drugs all the time. It was just all part of that ugly world, man. Just got out of hand very quickly.
So take me again to the spot where so now this is really interesting. Like I said, now the wheels are kind of turning. I'm thinking like, okay, so from, not really growing up in a house, no, really, I'm thinking clean cut, no really faith-wise, no alcohol or drugs, college, you're going to break it loose, open the Pandora's box, and then going hardcore all the way now to your trafficking. I won't even say, you use the word trafficking, so it sounds, more extreme than like dealing. Somebody selling an 8-ball or something like that, so they got their own. It sounds like a little bit more organized and bigger.
A little more than that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went from a fairly, of course I had my insecurities growing up, Rob. I experienced some bullying at a young age and had some ears that stuck out like this. And, we all go through things, nothing that I shouldn't have been able to cope with, but I just didn't, for whatever reason. I had a lot of insecurities, man, and I just wanted to fit in. And I got into binge drinking in college, and it was downhill from there, man, and just snowballed. And I'm not going to lie, it just really snowballed because of some choices I made that gave me some real deep shame and guilt feelings that I just didn't know how to cope with other than just escape. And it was hard. It was a lot of self-loathing, self-criticism, and ego, got in the way.
So let's get to the spot that's kind of either the pivotal or one of the beginning pivotals. So you're however old you are, you said 18 to 36, you're around 30. When did you start thinking like, I think I got a problem? And then
Yeah.
when did it get to like, the truth is, here's the truth. I'm an addict. Take us to there.
Yeah, I think I went through a couple phases where I knew, like with cocaine and gambling, where I knew I was in trouble. I knew that it had gone way past just some weekend warrior drug party, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it alone in my basement, and I was doing it, almost daily. But then I think that the straw, to get to what you're talking about, that broke the camel's back, was, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was a full-blown drug addict when I was hooked on opioids, and that, I was buying them, off the street when my script ran out, 3 weeks early. I was, even, being dishonest in the way I obtained them, and I was, making erroneous phone calls to get more. I knew that, the withdrawals were so extreme. They were like death. You've heard, I'm sure people talk about opioid withdrawal. It's like death. Flu times 1,000 or whatever. It's all of that and then some. So I knew, the thing that I really knew, Rob, I told this story before, but when I went at the very end, right before I went to rehab the third time, I remember that I was laying in my own pool of sweat in my bed with all the blinds closed, and I was by myself, and I hadn't been to work in weeks at my business I owned, and I was in pain. I couldn't get comfortable, and I remember I kept trying to drink water, and every time I drink water, I'd have that gag reflex, and I'd crawl to my toilet, literally in my master bathroom, and I'd throw up yellow stomach bile. I knew I was in big trouble. I was like, dude, you cannot hold water down. This isn't good, man. And so I knew that we were on death's doorstep, no doubt about it. But my mother helped me get into rehab and helped me realize that, there's no other option. This is it. It's time. You're going to die. And she came in one day and said, stand up, son, you're going to rehab, and drove into the airport, packed my bag, and had everything arranged for me and got me to rehab, and that was a turning point for me.
Wow, you didn't resist. You just figured, like, yeah, good, I need to do something.
I didn't want to die, man.
Yeah.
I didn't want to die. Why did it not
work the first couple of times? Why was it three? Why was the third time the charm for you?
I think we all say, a lot of people in recovery say, you're not done till you're done. And I think I just kind of thought I had a problem, but I could quit, or I thought it was just coke. I could, you really can't get addicted. I had all these stupid, or I'm just drinking. I can stay sober for a couple months if I want to, or I can, whatever the case. And there were a time, honestly, Robert, I literally thought this was just going to be my life. I had almost come to a place of acceptance. I'm like, this is just my life. I can't quit. I've tried everything.
Do you have brothers and sisters? Are they extreme like you? If you do, are they also
extreme straight arrows?
Yeah, okay.
I have twin sisters who set the bar high for me. They were always seemed like they always just kind of had it together, and were smart and happy, and they just kind of went the different route than I did, and which I think I also looked at them with some jealousy and envy, man. Like, and I've heard some people I've even coached have said, they have like this envious feeling of siblings who seem like they have it all together, and then I just can't seem to figure it out, which only further, adds to like the lower form, effect. Like, I'm like, I'll never be as good as them, and so you start to have some shame and other feelings, and it's all part of this escalation, I think, that if gone untreated or undiscussed or not discussed, can really lead to the need to escape, which I think is the door to addiction.
So let's get to a little bit of, let's kind of fast forward a little bit through, like, you finally go, your third time's a charm, and then now, like, I look at from then, and I know that you're entrepreneurial, you've always had businesses and things like that, and I know that it's not like, now you're very successful as a sober coach. As somebody that's marketed on the internet, I love that it was, your website is sober coaching. I was like, smart. And now, you're internationally certified as a interventionist. I remember doing that, sober companion. It's never been like, oh, hey, this is a business opportunity, but it was more like it was a mission. So take us a little bit through, like, when you were thinking, were you always kind of a coaching type of a personality even before this? Were you an advice giver type of a person? That's kind of how I am. Like, I'm somebody that's very compelled to tell people about things that I think work and things that don't. So How did that kind of whole thing start out? Like now you're sober, where light is on, you're like, oh my God, I feel so great. How did this happen?
Yeah, I've always been a people person. I've always enjoyed people. The problem is I used to attract the wrong kind of people because of my choices and my actions and behaviors. And so as a sober coach, I really enjoy working with people. And so that, of course, I think is an important characteristic to have in any as a coach. But when I got sober, 2 years after I got sober, I had this like feeling in my gut that I just couldn't get over or ignore any longer. And it kept getting stronger and stronger as I was growing in my recovery. I felt this unquenchable thirst to somehow give back, to somehow help people cross over from addict to thriving in sobriety like I had. Like there was just this weird voice inside of me, but I didn't know what it meant or what it was. And a guy that's a good friend of mine to this day that I knew from rehab reached out to me and said, actually I reached out to him to say, hey man, can you help me sort through these feelings? Because I really don't know what to make of all of this. I just know that I really don't want to be in the corporate business type world anymore. I'm just kind of ran that course, and I don't feel like that makes the world a better place, which I wanted to I was kind of
What did you do, by the way? I don't know. What did you do in the
I was in the credit card processing industry for about 18 years. We did bank card processing for small businesses and loyalty apps and stuff like that.
Point of sale devices and whatnot like that. Yeah, you can make a lot of money doing that. Yeah.
And I got in it when it was the Wild West, so I just right place, right time, and when I was right in college and kind of saw it grow and go through its phase. But man, I knew that was part of my old life. I really wanted to leave that behind in a lot of ways because it really no longer served me in my new life. And it's a life-changing phone call, buddy. Rob, one day I called my counselor sitting on my living room floor with this I couldn't silence this voice or this feeling any longer. And God bless him. He said, Aaron, have you ever thought about being a sober coach? And I'll never forget that, how the feeling that came over my body, it was like a wave, almost like everything that had happened in my life had prepared me for that phone call. I didn't know it. I just realized in that instant, like, that's it. That's it. Because he knew how passionate about recovery and fitness and well-being. He just knew like you were talking about, he knew my energy and how excited I was about this whole recovery journey thing. And then I'd been a guest speaker at the rehab a couple times. So he's like, man, when you speak, man, you really are passionate about this. You really mean this. This is you. And I remember, man, I said, holy crap, shit, man. I hung up that phone and started Googling, what's a sober coach? How do I become I was on fire. 2 weeks later, I was on an airplane getting certified. 2 weeks after that, I was getting certified again in another city, another state. So, of course, my extremism kicked in, right? I want to be the best sober coach. I want to save the most lives. I want to have the most certification. Here I go, right? All I did, Rob, was rechannel my go big into my new purpose, my new meaning, and here we are today, man.
That's funny. Well, do you think it's healthy? Actually, I got to kind of say almost like that, like, do you ever wonder that kind of thing? Like, God, I'm just so, or do we just go, I'm really, really passionate, like, I've always said about addiction and recovery, like, first of all, my personal belief is that there's this desire that we want to do big and do something, I think, even meaningful in some kind of way. And so I've always thought, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. Like, if you're going to be addicted to something, be addicted to something that is esteemable. Be addicted to, and maybe somebody's going to get mad about using the word addicted because it's, it's destructive and something like that. But just overboard, perhaps. Fitness, health, nutrition, volunteering, that kind of thing. But at least it's something like, that you could look in the mirror and other people as well, because we have feedback, and they can go like, good guy, good stuff, good thing, good, well done, man. What are your thoughts about, do you think you're ever too extreme in these kind of ways? Because, like, you've got a, you're like 4% body fat, you're men's health, you're all this kind of stuff. Like,
if you remember, Rob, I wrote an article about this in your magazine, and the title was Being Addicted. I think it was Being Addicted to Being Your Best Self. So a lot, if people say once an addict, always an addict, let's just use that for a minute. Let's go with that. Okay, let's just pretend that's true.
Yeah.
What's wrong with being addicted to being the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
You know, what's wrong with saying, you got me there? I'm addicted to trying to be my best inside and out. I'm addicted to self-growth. I'm addicted to making the world a better place. I'm addicted to all the things good that come in recovery. You got me. And if I got to be an addict, fucking so be it, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Good. Then I'm glad that I'm an addict to that, because that only serves me, the new me, and the people around me in a positive way.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is affected in positively if I'm out trying to make the world better and like, man, I'm gonna make injustices, and I'm gonna improve myself so I can inspire others, and I'm gonna get healthy so I can live longer and have better, you know, all these things, right? Like, okay, you know, I'm not gonna change my core to try and say that I want to be something different than I was before, because if I had this go big personality, all I had to really do, Rob, was figure out how to channel it into a different way, because I know how I channeled it into a negative way, but if I could rechannel those characteristics and personality traits into a positive thing, man, watch out.
I completely agree. I mean, that resonates so strong with me, because I think to myself, and I've said things like that to other people quite a bit, like, I want to be the best father that I can be. I want to be the best husband that I can be. I want to be the best friend. I want to be the best business partner. I respond very well to positive affirmation, and quite honestly, you know, when I don't have people say nice things about me, I don't really like it very much. It kind of, I'm always kind of self-checking to see, like, well, could I have done something different? You know, maybe I can make an adjustment. I like to say I'm sorry if I feel like I've done something, you know, to offend somebody quickly, you know, type of a thing. But I really get the whole idea, like, you know, I want to be the best self. Do you feel like you're at peace with yourself, or as much at peace with yourself? Are you all? I don't think maybe any of us are always at peace, but you have enough of those peaceful type of stuff where it's not like I'm going to go and kick ass, but you're just going to, you know.
Yeah. No, I live a life, Rob, where I try and be the best version of myself, but I also realize that I'm just human, and I also recognize my weaknesses. I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and it's an acceptance or an acknowledgement of some things in my life, and so I really try and give my all to the things I know that I'm good at and that best serve me, you know, and because I think I used to try and be something that I wasn't.
Yeah.
But in my recovery, Rob, and this is what I do with other people, I'm like, you know, let's find out who we are as a person, but more importantly, let's find out who we're not.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I focus on is okay, man, these are the things that I can do to improve myself, to help other people, and then what I don't have the ability to change or have an impact on, I try not to, I let it go. You know what I mean? And so I'm always striving to be my best and help others be their best version of themselves as well.
So how does that translate into, I mean, let's talk a little bit, kind of shift into more like now what you do professionally. Like, how does that translate into sober coaching or sober companion? Like, you go to people's houses. It's not like, well, I mean, you will. We're right now, as we're recording this, we're in, you know, house arrest with this, you know, the whole country shut down. I'm openly not very happy about that right now as well. But at some point, they have to let us out of our cells, and at some point, we're going to have to actually start to risk the fact that we can actually shake hands with somebody or see other people instead of being have the whole country in a plastic, you know, blowing a plastic bubble. So that's my little soapbox. But you go to places, you go take people to treatment centers, you pick them up from treatment centers, you help them go home, you help them get integrated into some kind of a program. Talk a little bit about what that is and what you do there.
Yeah, the main thing I do these days is sober coaching and sober companion work and sober transporting. You really nailed it all. I mean, I have people reach out to me. Some are post-rehab that are like, hey, you know, I'm going to be leaving rehab or sober living in, you know, in a week or 2 or 3 or whatever. I'm really nervous or scared about going home. I need someone who is strong in their sobriety to, you know, come escort me and help reacclimate me into life, and also help me create healthy, active routines so I can sustain long-term sobriety. Because what I do, Rob, is as a sober companion, is I really look at the person and their background and what they've been through and what brought them to the point of contacting me and saying, okay, I'm going to architect as best I possibly can based on my knowledge of addiction, recovery, and so forth, what I can do to help them create a recovery plan and architect a plan that's going to work for them. It may not be exactly what would work for me, but I'm going to take some things that I know are extremely beneficial to achieve long-term, or
like everybody, right?
Yeah. Some non-negotiables is how I refer
like
to it.
Fitness,
Yep.
nutrition,
Diet, nutrition, volunteer work, support systems. There's certain things like these are non-negotiable.
These are the common denominators of your prescription, if you will.
100%. These I know without a shadow of a doubt are going to help.
If somebody's going to work with you, the program that they're signing up for is you're going to go to the gym.
Yes.
You're going to sweat.
Yes.
Right? You're going to not eat crap. I mean, you don't even like to eat like low quality food. Like you get you like to have people what you're going to put in, so you're going to eat good. You're going to sleep, right?
Yeah.
What else?
We're going to be active members of our community. We're going to be community activists.
So it could be an NA, could be an AA, could be a Celebrate Recovery. I mean, does it faith-based, not faith-based? What is it?
I have attended every type of meeting you could imagine with a client where that is the pathway that they believe is going to work best for them. I've also worked with people that are against that format. You know, it doesn't work for them.
I don't want to go to a meeting at all.
And so zero. And so what I do is I take in what they tell me, and I say, okay, here's what we have to work with. And I say, based on what you're telling me and what I know about you, here are some options for you to consider. And then I'm going to go with you and do these things and be part of this experience, and so that I can be that iron rod in your life while we try and explore this new way of life for you, while we're going to the gym and while we're eating healthy and while we're doing this. And I also help set people up, Rob, in their local community with a recovery team. It's super important that I help them, because a lot of people are like, okay, what do I do? I'm sober now. What do I do? It's day one, right? Okay, who's our team? What's our routine? Where, who's around us? All these, there's a list of questions that I go through in my mind or with them, depending on situation, that says, what is our recovery plan? And let's get to executing it immediately. You know what I'm saying? We're going to hit the ground running. And so, because when I leave, I want them to have all the tools and resources and whether it's sponsors or counselors or family members or personal trainers or nutritionists or whatever the case is in their situation, I want them to have that all in place so that when I leave, all they have to pretty much do is show up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They have to show up until they're able to do it on their own.
How on point would you usually say your plans are? I mean, is it just like a given that like we're going to set a plan we're going to set out a plan, we're going to do this, and do you already provide them like saying, hey, by the way, we're going to make adjustments because there's some stuff's going to work, some stuff's not going to work, or most of the time do you set out a plan like you're going like here's an option, how does that sound? They're like, yeah, that sounds exactly perfect for me. How often does whatever the model is that you describe, when they start to implement it, that ends up, or do they call up and go, dude, this shit's not working? Like, there's some shit not working here. Like, this is not working. Like, how often does that happen?
It does happen. I'm not a magician. Nothing's perfect. This is addiction recovery.
We're dealing with mental illness.
Yeah. We're dealing with addiction, so anything can and does happen. Curveballs are a regular thing, and insanity never sleeps, right? So we've just got to remember what we're dealing with, the arena we're playing in. But one of the things I do is I have a talent or a knack for listening for golden nuggets when I talk to people. And people, if you ask questions and then actually listen to what they're saying, will put golden nuggets right in front of you. And what I mean by that is they'll tell me things about that they need in their recovery that I then help them implement. They'll tell me things that they're interested in that I find a way to make them part of. They'll tell me some people in their life that are probably need to get outside of the loving fence for a while. You know what I'm trying to say? They'll put these golden nuggets right in front of me. My responsibility and my job as a sober companion, sober coach, is to help them, is to take that information in and then put it into their recovery plan, whether it's adding or subtracting things.
Very cool, man. I like that. So they're leaving clues for you when they're telling your story.
Yep.
And then you're saying, well, my job is to kind of pick up on the clues and then reflect those back and say, like, okay, you just said, like, Bob is a dude that whatever. And so for right now, can we agree that Bob is out? You're not texting, calling, talking. Yep. You're not this, right?
Yep.
You're saying that faith is such and such, but you don't want to such and such, and so why don't we agree? So is that kind of a little
great
bit
example? Someone says, "I'm a person of faith. I'm like, celebrate recovery." You see what I'm saying? Or someone will say, "I love, holistic so and so." Boom, we're going to this.
Who do you not work with, man? Do you ever? I mean, you don't work with everybody, right?
No, I don't. There's been many people that have contacted me that I said I'm not.
Is there like a kind of person you don't work with, or what is?
I don't coach uncoachable people.
Yeah.
I'm not here to push a rope, Rob. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it's like, usually you can tell pretty quickly when someone contacts you their level of urgency of how bad they want it. Because one of my core questions when I interview people to be their sober companions, I'm like, do you really, genuinely, truly want to get sober? And I just,
what if they say, like, I think I do, or I really like what do they have to be sold out? What is the criteria there?
Usually their response gives me everything I need. You know what I'm saying? Because you're like,
so if they say yes, then you're like,
yes, I want to get sober. I need this. I can't do this.
What if they're wishy-washy, man? No.
Not that I'll say absolutely a hard no.
What litmus tests are there? So nobody's really going to come out and go, no, I'm not coachable. I mean, they don't say I'm not coachable. What's the litmus test?
Great question. Usually the ones that are usually questionable are whenever people want them to get sober for them. Like, my wife wants me to get sober. Yeah, man, my family, my trust is going to not pay me if I don't. These type of things, I'm like, I'm probably not your guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? And I'm like, not that there's not a sober companion out there for you, but I'm a little bit of a niche, Rob. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit of a niche in that.
Yeah.
People hire me because they love the complete transformation. A lot of people, when they come to me, they don't want to just get sober. They want to get uber sober. They want to get in shape, and they want to have a complete turnaround, and they want to improve every aspect of their life. They want to do more than just stop drinking or using when they hire.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Really, really cool, man. Yeah. Is there a lot of people that do this kind of thing? I know that there's obviously a lot of people. We've got a lot of great people that follow the magazine. We've featured a lot that are sober coaches and stuff like that. When we were talking, I was like, I don't really know of a lot of companions, people that do that, or there's transport and things of that nature. But is that it's because it's kind of taxing, isn't it? Like, the one thing that I see with what you're doing in terms of in this profession, especially like as a companion, is people don't really know you, man. Like, you can be anybody that you want. And so it seems like for me and plus you're giving, and not taking in for your own mental health. It seems to be a really slippery slope that, like, you could party with your client, man. Like, how do you keep your own self together, and does that concern you and bother you, type of a thing?
It does concern me because, some people are interested in entering the sober companion and coaching arena, which I get. A lot of people in recovery want to give back. What I always I give this buyer beware speech to them. I say, what you need to understand is that unless you are rock solid, and I don't mean any holes in your arsenal in your recovery, don't get in this game. You will be tested. You'll be tempted. You'll be pushed.
I think that people would almost subconsciously, like demonically, try. Like, well, yeah, I got a sober companion. Well, how'd that go? Yeah, we did lines together. Like, they almost would be like they're trying to, like, create a story. Like, cool, man, bring him on. I'll eat him up too, like I do everybody else.
2 of my clients said their previous sober companions before me used with them. And I said, I go, I'm going to tell you something real quick. It won't be me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm not that guy, man. And so you have to understand, you're going to be directly exposed to drugs. You're going to be exposed to alcohol. I've been exposed to drug dealers coming to the door. I've been exposed to absolute insane family members. I've been exposed to crazy ex-girlfriends and wives and husbands. There is nothing you're not exposed to, man. You know what I mean? And so you have to just understand that.
I would imagine it's kind of dangerous too.
Can be. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, I'm not going to lie. My size and stature does help a little bit. It provides.
Yeah, you're like what, 6'2", 2? What are you?
6'3", about 2 1/4, and but it's not so much. It's that sometimes people hire me because they're like, they need that kind of safety feeling in their recovery. Like, I trust that you're capable of giving me the sense of security that I need.
Yeah,
because
you
I
can handle it yourself.
I
Yeah.
can handle it. I can handle the situation. And that's also when people hire me to transport them. I oftentimes get cases where there's a little bit of higher risk, not always, but because they're like, I have the ability to manage a situation, and also I have a high level of empathy, Rob. I get it. I was doing this. I know what you're doing, and I know your insanity because I used to do that shit too for 20 fucking years, man. So no judgment here, but at the same time, I'm going to provide some stability and rationale to this irrational situation, unstable situation.
Really interesting. How did the men's health stuff happen for you? Because I know that you're always like telling me, like, I have to admit right now too, I just always want to tell the truth in any kind of an interview or anything like that. Like, when I started talking to you, I called you up, we've been friends, and I'm like, I need to drop 10 pounds. Like, I want to drop 10 pounds in like, a couple of weeks or whatever. What do you do? He's like, eat clean and go to the gym 6 days a week and sweat your, make sure you sweat your ass off at least every time, So I did that, and I lost about 35 pounds at one point.
I remember.
It's been about 25 pounds or so, but I got to say, like, dude, freaking coronavirus has kicked my ass, man. Like, the wife keeps, I'll blame it on her. It's me too. Like, she brings home freaking ice cream, and we're watching Netflix, and like, I hear all this stuff like, hey, learn a foreign language while you're confined in your home prison cell. Do this, do that, work on your business, but come on, man. Like, at least for me, I'm watching too much TV. Every day is Saturday, man. Every single day is Saturday. So, like, how did you get so disciplined and into, like, I'm going to lose freaking, because how?
Yeah, man, it was, how it all happened, the men's health thing, and was such an interest. It was like it was meant to be. You ever have one of those, like, where one person knew one person, and then this person offered to do this. It was like this perfectly put together chain of events that brought it to that story you see. And a guy named Dan Perez, you may know him. He wrote a book about addiction. Anyway, he knew someone at Men's Health, and he's like, hey, you should meet this guy. You know what I mean? And we were friends on social media and stuff like that. And one thing, and I just turned 5 years sober. Well, I'll be damned. I get an email. I'll never forget it. There was an email from Men's Health. They're like, Aaron, your story is right in our wheelhouse. We'd love to do a story on your transformation and everything. And
kick ass, man.
Man, it was a crazy deal. Thank you, buddy. I still am in a little bit of like that shock. You know what I mean? Like a little bit like, wow, this really happened, didn't it? But I'll tell you, what was really neat, man, about the story, I want to tell you a really cool thing was whenever the writer reached out to me about getting it going, of course I needed some photos and stuff. And so I worked my ass off for 2 straight months and trained and dieted and you do name it, almost like you're preparing for a show almost. Yeah. And I did a photo shoot with some amazing photographers down in Tampa, Florida. But whenever the lady sent me the questions for the interview, Rob, boy, talk about a trip down memory lane. You want to talk, I remember like typing some of them, just crying my eyes out, man, like telling my story. And like when you like put it on paper and you relive it in your mind, and they weren't like yes or no questions. These are 30 open-ended, very detailed questions about your journey in your life and how did we get from point A to point B, And man, I remember just the purge I felt from writing and just explaining to her, that writer, all these questions. Man, it was such I'm so grateful for the opportunity experience. But I think what tickles me the most, Rob, what really does it for me, buddy, about that article and when I was answering the questions and whenever I was taking the photos and when I was working out, you know what kept crossing my mind, man? Was that some stranger out there, someone I'll never meet, somebody that I'll never know their name, could be inspired by my story, that all the mistakes I made and the bumps and bruises and crashes and overdoses and everything I went through, and then I was able to turn it all around. If that is the moment where they go, I'm going to ask for help, or today is the day I'm going to make a change, to know that story could have been their turning point, man, it gives me chills thinking about it.
Yeah, really cool, man.
Really cool, man, to think about that, It's touching to me, buddy, because I'm like, to think that my story could help someone else that I'll never even know is pretty powerful. Yeah. That does it for me, brother.
Yeah, man. It's all about, and the cool thing is it's something that it's ripples. You know, it's like your story touching somebody else.
Yeah.
Touching somebody else. It's the saying of, you know, how many seeds are in an apple?
Yeah.
How many apples are in a seed type of a thing. And so your story affecting somebody who affects somebody who affects somebody. So I don't know. I think it kind of circles all the way back around to like trying to be a good person, trying to do the right thing, trying to, you know, live your life as an example, trying to enjoy your life and be, you know, of service to others. And all of those things, I've really seen that. That's how you've been with me, you know, all the time. You've been there for me when I've talked and, you know, I've needed you. So, yeah, man.
I think it made all the pain and darkness and isolation and worth it. You know what I'm saying? It really made it all worth it, man. Like I'd go back and do it all over again to have the opportunity to help people that I get to help. And
do you see yourself doing this for 20 years from now, or do you know? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sober companion work takes a toll on you. You know, you're away from your home and your routine and your family and your familiarities, you know, and you're thrown into this insane pool, right? You know, and just trying to stay calm and rational. So it does take a toll on you, and you need a break. And but I think I'll do it, you know, for as long as the mission calls. But at the same time, I am working on some other projects behind the scenes in the addiction arena, of course. That'll be my arena forever, and very passionate about recovery and helping people and making a difference in this world and leaving it better than I found it, Rob. So I am working on some projects that I think hopefully will reach a lot of people and make a difference right down to I'm really interested in helping kids, man, and showing them how cool sobriety is. So I actually spoke at a school in Puerto Rico a couple months ago about sobriety and helped them start a sobriety and wellness plan for their kids, for their students. And that kind of set this thing off in my mind about how much I really love working with kids and trying to mentor them. And so I've got some projects spinning behind the scenes that I think are going to be pretty freaking cool, man. I'm really excited about them.
What's the best way? How do people get back in touch with you?
Excuse me. Easiest way to find me is my website, sobercoaching.com. I'm on Instagram and social media as Sober Coaching Aaron, and or just type in, you know, Aaron Barnes, Sober Coach Aaron Barnes, anything like that. Google's found me pretty good at this point, so thank you.
Good, man. Yeah. Well, I really we'll put all the links in here and all the stuff, and we'll share some of your pictures, some of the men's health, some other before and after and stuff, and have your kind of your full story. But I appreciate you jumping out, man. I just wanted to kind of spotlight you, tell you thank you for everything, and get your story out to everybody here within Recovery Today.
I want to say thank you, Rob. Thank Recovery Today magazine. I want to thank all the people in my journey that have helped me and continue to support me, and it's really an honor to sit here. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We're friends, man. That's what it's about.
For sure. More fans of us.
Right on. Well, this has been another exclusive interview by Recovery Today. My pleasure with my friend here, Aaron Barnes, and we'll have all this stuff in there. So if you hang on just a second, Aaron, I'll stop the recording.
Thanks, Rob.